They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's best served with patience, precision, and 30 years of FBI training behind you. My name is Richard Donovan, though most people who knew me in my former life called me Agent Donovan. I spent 3 decades hunting white-collar criminals, unraveling fraud schemes, and watching desperate men try to shift their guilt onto innocent people. I never imagined that one day, I'd be using those same skills against my own son. But Michael forced my hand. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was sitting in my study in the modest 2-bedroom house I'd bought after retiring from the bureau, nursing a glass of decent scotch and reading a biography of J. Edgar Hoover, not because I admired the man, but because understanding your agency's history, even its darker chapters, was part of the job that never quite left me. My phone buzzed. Michael's name appeared on the screen. We hadn't spoken in 6 months. Not since Thanksgiving, when he'd shown up 3 hours late with some excuse about traffic, though I could smell the casino smoke on his clothes from across the room. My late wife, Sarah, would have been heartbroken to see what Michael had become. Maybe it was a blessing she'd passed 5 years ago, spared from witnessing our son's descent. Dad? Michael's voice came through, warm and cheerful in that way that immediately put me on guard. I'd interrogated enough con men to know when someone was performing. How are you doing? I've been meaning to call. Michael. I kept my voice neutral. What do you need? A pause. Then a laugh, forced and brittle. Why do you always assume I need something? Can't a son just check in on his old man? At 9:30 on a Tuesday night? After 6 months of silence? I took a sip of scotch. Cut to it, Michael. Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, the warmth had drained from his voice, replaced by something harder, more desperate. I need to come by tomorrow. There are some papers I need you to sign. Business documents. Time sensitive. Every instinct I'd honed over 30 years started firing at once. What kind of documents? Dad, I'll explain everything tomorrow. Can I come by around 10? Please. This is important. The please was what did it, not because it softened me, but because Michael never said please. Not anymore. Not since he'd graduated college with a business degree and decided he was smarter than everyone else in the room. Fine, I said. 10 o'clock. But Michael? I'm not signing anything without reading it first. And I mean every word. Of course, Dad. I wouldn't expect anything less. The warmth was back in his voice, artificial and cloying. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the phone in my hand. Then I opened my laptop and started doing what I did best, investigating. Michael Donovan. Age 42. My only child. Once upon a time, he'd been a bright kid with a good heart. He'd played Little League, graduated near the top of his high school class, went to a good college. But somewhere along the way, maybe in his late 20s, after his first startup failed, something had shifted. The ambition curdled into recklessness. The confidence became arrogance. I pulled up his social media first. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. His LinkedIn profile claimed he was CEO of something called Donovan Ventures Capital, a company I'd never heard him mention. The description was full of buzzwords. Disruptive innovation, strategic investments, cryptocurrency integration, blockchain solutions. Red flags everywhere. I dug deeper, using some of the databases I still had access to through old bureau contacts. What I found made my blood run cold. Michael's company was real, registered in Delaware 3 years ago. But the trail of financial documents told a different story than his LinkedIn suggested. Donovan Ventures Capital had taken investments from over 40 individuals, promising returns of 15 to 20% annually through cutting-edge crypto arbitrage strategies. The total amount raised was just over $3 million. The problem? There was no evidence of any actual trading. The money had flowed in, moved between various accounts, and then vanished. Some had been withdrawn as cash. Some had been sent to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Some had simply disappeared into a labyrinth of shell companies. It was a Ponzi scheme. Classic, textbook, and entirely illegal. And the victim list. I scrolled through the investor names and felt my stomach drop. Neighbors from Michael's upscale neighborhood. Parents of his kids' classmates. His ex-wife's brother. People who'd trusted him because they knew him, because he was charming and successful and seemed to know what he was talking about. But the worst part. At the bottom of one document, I found my own name listed as a senior advisor to Donovan Ventures Capital. I'd never advised Michael on anything related to this company. I'd never even heard of it until tonight. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a cold, controlled fury I'd learned to channel during my years at the Bureau. Michael wasn't just running a scam. He was setting me up to take the fall. I made myself stop, take a breath, and think like an agent instead of a father. The fact that he was coming tomorrow with documents meant he was getting desperate. Someone must have started asking questions. Maybe the SEC had opened an investigation. Maybe one of his investors had gotten suspicious and threatened legal action. Michael needed a patsy, and he'd decided his own father would do nicely. What would those documents say? Probably something that transferred liability to me. Maybe backdated papers claiming I'd been involved in the company's formation. Maybe financial authorizations with my signature that he could use to claim I'd approved the fraudulent transactions. A younger, angrier version of myself would have called him right then and told him never to come near me again. But I'd learned patience during my time at the Bureau. Rush in without a plan, and you spook your target. They lawyer up, destroy evidence, flee. You get nothing. No, this required a more careful approach. I spent the rest of the night preparing. I called Tom Reeves, an old colleague who'd moved to the SEC after retiring from the Bureau. We'd worked white-collar cases together for 15 years, and I trusted him absolutely. Richard, he answered on the second ring, his voice warm. It's been too long. How's retirement treating you? Tom, I need a favor. Off the books, just for now. His tone shifted immediately, all business. What's going on? I explained the situation, quickly, efficiently, laying out the facts without emotion. When I finished, Tom was quiet for a moment. Jesus, Richard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you check if there's an active investigation? Give me an hour. He called back in 45 minutes. There's an investigation, all right. Started 2 weeks ago after 3 investors filed complaints with both the SEC and the FBI. The agents assigned to it are good people, Sarah Chin and Marcus Riley. They'd been building the case quietly, trying to trace the money flow. And my name? Came up yesterday. They found the same documents you did, listing you as a senior advisor. Chin wanted to bring you in for questioning, but Riley convinced her to wait, do more research first. He remembered you from a joint task force back in '09. Vouched for your character. Riley, I said, the name clicking into place. Tall guy, came up from the Dallas office? That's him. He said there's no way you'd be involved in something like this, but they still need to investigate. Protocol. I understood. What happens if they get evidence I actively participated in the fraud? Tom's silence was answer enough. Right, I said quietly. Tom, I need you to do something for me. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., my son is coming to my house with documents he wants me to sign. I'm going to be recording the entire conversation, audio and video. Whatever happens, I need you to make sure that recording gets to Agents Chin and Riley. Richard. And Tom? I'm going to get your investigation the evidence you need to put Michael away. But I need you to trust me and give me some room to work. Another long pause. Then, how much room? A week. Maybe 2. Richard, if you're planning to confront him yourself. I'm 70 years old, Tom. I'm not planning to confront anyone. I'm planning to do what I did for 30 years, build a case. Tom sighed. 1 week. After that, I have to tell Chun and Riley everything. And Richard? Be careful. Desperate people do desperate things, even to family. Especially to family, I said and hung up. I spent the rest of the night setting up small cameras, the kind you could buy online for home security, positioned in my study where we'd be meeting. One on the bookshelf, one hidden in the lamp, one in the smoke detector. A recording app on my phone, set to start with a single tap. A second phone in my pocket, connected to an old bureau contact who'd agreed to monitor the conversation in real time from his car down the street. By the time dawn broke, I was ready. Michael arrived at 10:03, pulling up in a BMW X7 that must have cost $90,000. His suit was expensive, his watch was a Rolex, and his smile was pure desperation masquerading as confidence. "Dad!" He embraced me at the door, and I let him, feeling the tension in his shoulders. "Thanks for seeing me on such short notice." "Of course." I stepped back, studying him. He looked older than 42. There were lines around his eyes, gray threading through his dark hair. "Coffee? I'd love some." We made small talk in the kitchen while the coffee brewed. He asked about my health, told me about his kids, my grandchildren, whom I saw maybe twice a year if I was lucky. Tyler was doing well in soccer. Emma had made the honor roll. His new girlfriend, Ashley, was wonderful, though he didn't mention that his divorce from Jennifer had been finalized only 6 months ago. All the while I watched him. The way his eyes kept darting to his briefcase. The way he drummed his fingers against the counter. The way he laughed just a little too loud at jokes that weren't funny. He was terrified. "So," I said finally, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "These documents." "Right." He grabbed his briefcase like a drowning man clutching a life preserver. "Let's go to your study." We settled into the leather chairs in my study, the morning light streaming through the windows. Michael pulled out a thick stack of papers, setting them on my desk with what he probably thought was casual confidence. "So here's the situation," he began, launching into what was clearly a rehearsed speech. "Dad, you know I've been working in venture capital for the past few years. Donovan Ventures has been incredibly successful. We've helped over 40 families grow their wealth through strategic crypto investments." I sipped my coffee and said nothing. "But here's the thing about this industry, it's heavily regulated. And sometimes, even when you're doing everything right, you run into bureaucratic red tape." He laughed, shaking his head. "It's ridiculous, really. We've generated amazing returns for our clients, but now some regulators are asking questions about our structure." "What kind of questions?" "Oh, just technical stuff. Corporate governance, fiduciary responsibility, chain of custody for funds. You know how it is, they want every I dotted and T crossed." He pushed the papers toward me. "So my lawyers advised me that we need to clarify the company's founding structure. Make sure all the documentation is in order from the beginning." I picked up the first document. It was dated 3 years ago, right around the time Donovan Ventures Capital was supposedly founded. According to this paper, I had been a founding partner, contributing $50,000 in initial capital and serving as the company's chief compliance officer. Complete fiction. "Michael," I said carefully, "I was never a founding partner. I never invested $50,000. And I sure as hell never served as your chief compliance officer." He didn't even blink. "Dad, you're forgetting. We talked about this back in 2021. You were so supportive of my new venture. You said you wanted to help however you could. I never. And you did help. You gave me excellent advice about regulatory compliance. Your FBI background was invaluable." He leaned forward, his voice taking on a pleading edge. "Look, I know you're retired and you're not involved in the day-to-day operations anymore. That's fine. But the lawyers need these documents signed and backdated to show that our corporate structure was solid from the start. It's just a formality." I set down the document and picked up the next one. This was even better, or worse, depending on your perspective. It was an authorization form giving Michael power of attorney over an investment account allegedly in my name, containing $250,000. An account that didn't exist. Where exactly did this $250,000 come from? I asked. Your retirement funds, Dad. Don't you remember? You rolled over some of your FBI pension into our investment vehicle to get better returns. The lie was so audacious I almost admired it. Almost. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the fear swimming in his eyes behind the practiced charm. Saw the way his hands trembled slightly as he pushed more papers toward me. And I realized something that broke my heart. He'd convinced himself this would work. He'd convinced himself that his father was old, maybe a little senile, definitely out of touch with modern finance. Easy to manipulate. Easy to use. He'd forgotten who I was. Michael, I said quietly, what's really going on here? For just a second, his mask slipped. I saw raw panic flash across his face before the smile returned. Dad, I told you. Cut the shit. My voice was harder now, carrying the authority of 3 decades of federal law enforcement. I'm not signing these papers. Not now, not ever. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Dad, you don't understand. I need you to sign these. It's important. Important to frame me for your fraud, you mean? The room went silent. Michael's face went through a rapid series of expressions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, cold calculation. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. Yes, you do. I stayed seated, keeping my voice level. Donovan Ventures Capital is a Ponzi scheme, Michael. You took $3 million from people who trusted you and you stole it. Now there's an SEC investigation, probably an FBI investigation too, and you need someone to take the fall. So you decided to forge documents implicating your own father. That's not, I didn't. He was breathing hard now, the mask fully crumbling. Dad, please. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. These people, the investors, they're threatening me. Some of them have connections, dangerous people. If I don't give them their money back, then you shouldn't have stolen it in the first place. I didn't steal anything. His voice rose, desperate. It was supposed to work. The crypto strategy was solid, but the market crashed and everything fell apart. I was going to pay everyone back, I just needed time. But they wouldn't give me time, and now the government is involved, and if I don't do something, I'm going to prison. So you thought you'd send me there instead? No. God, no, Dad. That's not. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. I just need to show that someone else was in charge of compliance. Someone with credentials who could have missed the red flags. You're retired, you have your pension, you'd get a slap on the wrist at worst. But me? I have kids to support, a whole life ahead of me. It's not fair. There it was. The core of his rotten reasoning laid bare. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't remorseful. He was just convinced that he deserved a better fate than the one he'd created for himself. I stood up slowly, my old knees creaking. Get out of my house, Michael. Dad, please. Get out. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something die in his eyes. Whatever sliver of hope he'd been clinging to, whatever delusion that his father would save him one more time, it evaporated. Fine, he said coldly. But you're making a mistake. When the FBI comes knocking, and they will, these documents will still exist. I have copies, Dad. Copies with your signature on them. You forged my signature? I did what I had to do. He was gathering up his papers, shoving them back into his briefcase. And if you don't help me, I'll use them. I'll tell the investigators you were involved from the start. It'll be my word against yours, and guess what? I have paperwork. What do you have? The truth. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. The truth? Dad, when has the truth ever mattered in court? It's about evidence, about narrative, about who can tell the better story. And I've got a great story. My father, the former FBI agent, helped me set up my company. Gave me advice on how to structure it. Then when things went south, he claimed he knew nothing about it. Classic deniability. He headed for the door, then turned back. Last chance, Dad? Sign the papers, and I'll make sure your name stays clean. We'll say you consulted but weren't involved in operations. You walk away free. And you? I asked. I'll figure something out. I always do. Michael, I said, and something in my tone made him stop. I love you. You're my son, and I'll always love you. But I won't let you do this. Not to me, and not to the people you've already hurt. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw the boy he used to be. The kid who'd cried when he accidentally hurt a bird with his baseball. The teenager who'd volunteered at the soup kitchen every Thanksgiving. But then it was gone, replaced by this stranger wearing my son's face. Then I guess we have nothing more to talk about, he said and walked out. I listened to his car start, the engine roar, the tires squeal as he pulled away too fast. Then I sat back down in my chair, feeling every one of my 70 years. My phone buzzed. Tom Reeves. I got all of it, he said. Every word crystal clear. Good, I said quietly. Tom, I'm going to need you to set up a meeting with Agents Chen and Riley. Tomorrow if possible. You're going to cooperate? I'm going to do better than that, I said. I'm going to close their case for them. The thing about being a federal agent for 3 decades is that you learn how criminals think. You learn their patterns, their mistakes, their desperate moves when they're cornered. And more importantly, you learn that the best way to catch a criminal is to let them think they're getting away with it. Michael had made his first mistake when he threatened me with forged documents. His second mistake was assuming I'd go quietly. But his biggest mistake was forgetting that before I was his father, I was Special Agent Richard Donovan, and I'd taken down criminals far more sophisticated than he'd ever be. I met with Agents Chen and Riley the next morning at a coffee shop halfway between my house and their field office. Chen was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Riley I remembered, he'd aged well, still tall and broad-shouldered, though his hair had gone gray at the temples. Agent Donovan, Riley said, shaking my hand. Good to see you again, sir. Though I wish it were under better circumstances. Richard is fine. I'm not an agent anymore. I gestured for them to sit. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Chen was studying me with the kind of careful assessment I'd used on thousands of suspects over the years. Mr. Donovan, I want to be upfront with you. Your name has come up in our investigation of Donovan Ventures Capital. We've seen documents that suggest you were involved in the company's formation and operations. I know, I said. And I'm here to tell you that those documents are forgeries. I pulled out my laptop and played them the recording from yesterday. They listened in silence, their expressions growing grimmer with each minute. When Michael's threat about using forged documents came through, Chen swore under her breath. Jesus, Riley said when it finished. He really tried to frame his own father. He's desperate, I said. And desperate people make mistakes. I'm hoping we can use those mistakes to build your case. Chen leaned forward. Mr. Donovan, I appreciate you bringing this to us. This recording is helpful for clearing your name. But it doesn't give us much in terms of prosecuting your son. He could claim he was speaking hypothetically, that the documents were just drafts he never intended to use. I know. That's why I'm proposing something more. Which is? I'd spent all night thinking about this, weighing my options. What I was about to suggest would cross some ethical lines. But Michael had stopped being just my son the moment he decided to ruin innocent people's lives. He'd become a criminal who needed to be stopped. I want to work with you, I said. Undercover. Let Michael think I've changed my mind, that I'm willing to cooperate. I'll get him to trust me again. And once he does, I'll get you everything you need, financial records, communications with investors, evidence of where the money went. Everything. Chen and Riley exchanged glances. Mr. Donovan, Chen said carefully, we appreciate the offer, but we can't use a civilian for undercover work. Especially not the father of the subject. The legal complications alone. would be minimal if I were operating as a cooperating witness rather than an undercover agent. I finished. I know the rules, Agent Chin. I helped write some of them. And I'm not asking to wear a wire or make controlled transactions. I'm simply offering to reconnect with my son, see if he shares information voluntarily, and report back to you what I learn. That's still. Agent Chen. Riley interrupted gently. Could we have a moment? They stepped away from the table, having a hushed conversation while I sipped my coffee. I knew what they were debating. The rules said no, but the rules had been written for situations involving strangers, not federal agents who knew exactly what they were doing. And the truth was, they needed help. White-collar cases were notoriously difficult to prosecute without insider cooperation, and Michael wasn't likely to cooperate with anyone but me. They came back. Chin still looked skeptical, but Riley had that expression I recognized, the practical pragmatism of an agent who knew that sometimes you had to bend the rules to catch the bad guys. Here's what we can do, Riley said. You're not working for us. Officially, you're just a concerned citizen who's keeping us informed about interactions with your son. If he voluntarily shares information with you, and you voluntarily share that information with us, that's perfectly legal. There will be restrictions, Chen added firmly. You don't make any recordings without our knowledge. You don't trick him into saying anything incriminating. You don't put yourself in any dangerous situations. And if at any point we feel this arrangement is compromising the investigation or your safety, we pull the plug. Understood? Understood. And Mr. Donovan? Chen's expression softened slightly. I know this must be incredibly difficult. He's your son. He stopped being my son when he decided to hurt innocent people, I said, though saying it hurt more than I'd expected. Now he's just another criminal who needs to face justice. We spent the next hour going over the details of the investigation. Chen and Riley briefed me on what they knew, and I filled in gaps from my own research. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd initially thought. Donovan Ventures Capital had 43 investors, most of them middle-class families who'd scraped together their savings hoping for better returns. Michael had promised them 15 to 20% annual returns through sophisticated crypto arbitrage strategies. In reality, there was no trading. The money had gone into a series of accounts Michael controlled, and from there, it had been siphoned off to fund his lifestyle: the BMW, the expensive house in the suburbs, the designer clothes, the vacations to Turks and Caicos. Classic Ponzi scheme mechanics. Early investors got paid with money from later investors, creating the illusion of returns. But eventually, the math doesn't work anymore. You run out of new victims, and the whole thing collapses. We estimate he's got maybe $300,000 left, Riley said, showing me a spreadsheet. The rest is gone. Spent, hidden in offshore accounts we can't trace yet, or converted to assets under other people's names. His girlfriend? I asked. Chen nodded. Ashley Morrison. She's got a luxury condo in Miami that Michael bought last year, though her name is on the title. We suspect there are other assets like that, but we can't prove the money came from the fraud without better documentation. And the investors? Getting angry, Chen said grimly. 3 have already filed complaints. More will follow once word spreads. Some of these people lost their retirement savings, Mr. Donovan. Their kids' college funds. One family took out a second mortgage to invest with your son. I felt sick. How long does he have before the whole thing becomes public? We've managed to keep it quiet so far, but maybe another week or 2. Once the media gets wind of it. Riley shook his head. He knows he's running out of time. That's probably why he came to you. So what's the play? I asked. Chin pulled out a legal pad, all business now. We need evidence of intent. We need to prove Michael knew from the start that this was a fraud, not a legitimate investment that happened to fail. We need communications, emails, texts, recordings, where he acknowledges what he's doing. And we need a paper trail showing where the money went. I can get you all of that, I said. How? I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Because Michael thinks I'm a confused old man he can manipulate. And I'm going to let him keep thinking that until it's too late. I called Michael that evening. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice wary. Dad? Michael. I put exhaustion into my voice, made myself sound old and beaten down. We need to talk. Silence. Then, I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said. About the pressure you're under, about your kids. About how it's not fair. I paused, letting him hear the implied surrender. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I didn't understand the full situation. I could practically hear him holding his breath. What are you saying, Dad? I'm saying come by tomorrow. Bring those papers. Let's talk about how to handle this properly. Dad, I thank you. God, thank you. The relief in his voice was palpable. I promise, we'll figure this out together. I'll make sure you're protected. You won't regret this. I already regret it, I said quietly. But you're my son, Michael. What else can I do? After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my study for a long time. I'd crossed a line tonight. I'd lied to my son, manipulated him, set a trap. But what choice did he leave me? What choice did he leave the 43 families he'd destroyed? My phone buzzed. A text from Riley. Recording devices will be delivered to your house tonight. Small, undetectable. We'll walk you through placement in the morning. I texted back. Understood. Then I poured myself a scotch and tried not to think about Sarah, about what she would say if she could see what I was about to do. But I knew deep down that she'd understand. She'd always understood that some things were bigger than family loyalty. Some things, like justice, couldn't be compromised. Even for your own child. Michael arrived the next morning with coffee and pastries, all smiles and charm. He'd brought the same briefcase, the same documents, but his whole demeanor had changed. He thought he'd won. Dad, thank you for reconsidering, he said, settling into the chair across from me. I know this is hard, but I promise, we're going to get through this together. Walk me through it again, I said, playing the part of a confused older man trying to understand. Explain to me exactly what these documents say. He did, with remarkable patience. He showed me the backdated founding documents, explaining how they'd clarify that I was involved from the start. He showed me the financial authorizations, claiming they were just formalities to streamline the regulatory process. And as he talked, as he spun his web of lies, the recording devices hidden throughout my study captured every word. But Michael, I said, playing concerned, if I sign these, won't it look like I'm admitting I was involved in something illegal? Dad, there's nothing illegal happening here. His smile never wavered. Yes, some investors are unhappy. Yes, the returns didn't materialize the way we hoped. But that's business risk, not fraud. These documents just protect both of us by showing we had proper corporate governance from the start. And the SEC investigation? His smile faltered for just a second. How do you know about that? You mentioned regulators asking questions. I'm not stupid, Michael. Right. Sorry. He rubbed his face. Look, the SEC investigation is nothing. They investigate lots of companies. It's just bureaucratic box checking. But having you listed as Chief Compliance Officer, with your FBI background? That's golden, Dad. That shows we took compliance seriously. It shows we had expert oversight. Expert oversight that somehow missed $3 million disappearing? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Michael's expression hardened. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm trying to understand how this protects me. Because from where I'm sitting, these documents make me look like either a criminal or an incompetent fool. Dad. And I'm wondering. I continued, watching him carefully. Where exactly did that money go? Because if I'm going to put my name on this, I need to know the truth. For a long moment, Michael just stared at me. I could see him calculating, weighing whether to come clean or keep lying. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and laughed, a tired, bitter sound. You really want to know? Yes. Fine. He stood up, started pacing. You're right, okay? The money's gone. There never was any real crypto trading. It was all bullshit from the start. Why? Because I needed it. His voice rose, anger breaking through. Do you know what it's like trying to keep up in this world, Dad? Everyone around me was making money, living in nice houses, driving nice cars. And I was still struggling, still trying to prove I was worth something. So when I figured out I could raise investment capital just by talking a good game, I took the shot. You stole from people who trusted you. I borrowed from them. He corrected. It was supposed to be temporary. I was going to start a real business, make real profits, pay everyone back with interest. But everything I tried failed. And then I was in too deep, and the only way to keep everyone happy was to keep the money flowing in. It's not my fault the whole thing collapsed. Every word was being recorded. Every admission of guilt, every rationalization, every lack of remorse. So where's the money now? I asked quietly. Gone. Spent. Offshore. Does it matter? He turned to face me, and there was something desperate and dangerous in his eyes. The point is, I need you to help me. If you sign these papers, I can at least avoid prison. Please, Dad. I'm your son. You were my son. I said. I don't know what you are now. His face twisted. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not signing your papers, Michael. But you said? I lied. I stood up, my voice steady despite the breaking of my heart. Just like you've been lying to everyone for years. His expression went through shock, rage, and finally settled on cold hatred. You set me up. No, Michael. You set yourself up. I just made sure there was a record of it. You're recording this. It wasn't a question. His eyes darted around the room, searching for cameras, microphones. You fucking bastard, you're recording this. Yes. It won't hold up in court. It's entrapment. I'll claim you coerced me, that you. It's not entrapment when you voluntarily confess to fraud, Michael. I didn't make you do anything. You came here, you tried to frame me, and when that didn't work, you told me the truth. That's on you. He lunged at me then, and I was ready for it. Old instincts kicked in. I sidestepped, caught his arm, and used his own momentum to send him stumbling into the bookshelf. Books tumbled down around him as he caught himself. It's over, I said. The FBI has everything they need. Agents Chin and Riley are probably already drafting your arrest warrant. Michael slumped against the bookshelf, all the fight draining out of him. You're really going to do this? Send your own son to prison? You're really going to act surprised? After you tried to send me there first? He started laughing, high, hysterical. God, what would Mom say? If she could see us now, what would she think? The mention of Sarah hit like a punch to the gut. She'd be heartbroken. I said.